Hey loves, welcome to The Quick Tip.
I'm your host, Dejada.
And I'm Kamisha, and we are a part of the team at Sista Afya Community Mental Wellness in Chicago. The Quick Tip is a podcast where we discuss relatable topics in Black women's mental wellness.
We provide thoughtful reflections, quick tips, and leave you with some things to take action on to improve your mental wellness.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the podcast.
Welcome back to the Quick Tip Podcast. This is your host, Kamisha. And today we are finishing off our Black Women at Work series where we talk about different issues in the workplace that impact Black women's mental well-being. And today we are going to be focusing on entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship has grown amongst Black women. I think there's a statistic that Black women are one of the fastest growing groups of entrepreneurs. And reasons that people can start a business can be everything from financial freedom to trying to increase wealth, leave a legacy for their family. And today we're going to speak with Tytannie Harris, LCSW, who is an entrepreneur, a mental health business owner, about her experience as an entrepreneur, its impact on her mental well-being, and what to know if you're interested in starting a business one day. So just some information about Tytannie. Tytannie Harris is a psychotherapist, certified balanced living coach, author, and inspirational speaker that is making a difference with her self-determination to help push for more awareness towards mental health. She started her professional career 10 years ago in the mental health field as a psychotherapist. Currently, Ms. Harris is the CEO of TMH Behavioral Services, a mental health private practice behavioral health clinic that specializes in individual and family therapy, senior services, and parenting support. She specializes in solution-focused, trauma-informed, and strength-based therapy, bringing years of experience working with people from all walks of life. Ms. Harris is also the founder of TMH Man Cave, a nonprofit created to bring awareness and eliminate the stigma associated with the mental health needs of Black men. As a psychotherapist, Harris realized that Black men were hurting and needed a space where they could not only discuss the issues that affect them, but feel empowered in a place where it is culturally sensitive and there are resources that are provided. So, Tytannie, welcome to the Quick Tip Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your story and what led you to create your own business.
Oh, that's a long story, but we're going to keep it short because this is the quick tip. I always tell people my life is a reflection of who I needed in a nutshell. And so in terms of my professional career, where I started my own business, as you know, being in social services, the long hours, right? The stress that comes with working 12 hours a day, doing case management, doing therapy, and just not being paid for the work that we do, which I think is so valuable. And so it's so funny. Like I remember, being in graduate school and just thinking to myself, like one day I'm gonna have my own practice. I don't know where it came from, but I don't even think I actually believed it when I said it. I just kind of blurted it out loud, not knowing where this journey would take me. And so after years of working, in different child welfare agencies, I work with every population, the homeless population, DV, teens, children, and worked for DCFS for a while. I just said, you know what, I think it's about time that I venture out on my own. And so for me, it was about just creating a legacy. I wanted to be able to have my own freedom, right? And actually, feel good about the work that I was doing.
And what were you talked about this a little bit, but were there any other experiences in the workplace that you were like, I got to get out of here, creating my business is like the best option for me?
Yeah. So what sort of catapulted me into this journey was I became very ill back in 2014. And so my employer at the time did not want to pay me for the time that I was off. And I just thought, I'm just like, what? Like, I didn't even understand, like, how was that possible? And I had accumulated so much time. And in my mind, I thought, like, okay, I'll start my practice once I get married, have children. That had not happened at that point. And it still has not happened, but that's okay. And I felt like when I was on leave from that job, I felt a push from God and I was like, okay, it's time. But I was like, but how can I prepare? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to save like 3 to 6 months of my income and just do it. And so I started my business in 2015, and I was just like building my practice by myself, but I was also working, doing a bunch of contract work too, just to kind of sustain. So I feel like I was pushed to start because I was tired of like I mentioned before, the long hours. And I wanted to be a therapist and do other things, but I knew I didn't want to spend all day doing those things, if that makes sense. And so starting my business was just a natural transition for me. I think like I've always been a leader and always kind of want to do my own thing. As a child, I was diagnosed with a behavior disorder. So I've sort of always marched to the beat of my own drum. I think that's sort of helped me in the business world where I just feel like I'm going to create my own lane no matter what.
Yeah, yeah. And I can totally identify, being in the nonprofit space, being in social work, the conditions, that we have to work in,
Yes.
and the populations that we serve are vulnerable. So it's even more important that we like show up
Yep.
as our best selves. And so it sounds like entrepreneurship was a way for you to have that freedom, but to also to be able to show up as your best in this work. And how has your well-being like changed as being an entrepreneur? So, the good, bad, the ugly, like
Ooh,
how has it changed?
it has changed. It looks very different than it did 8 years ago. So initially I found myself very stressed out, right? I am one of the first people in my life that I know that has started a business. And so for me it was like, okay, it was I was stressed out a lot initially because I just didn't know a lot of things, right? About owning a business, what it meant. Like in social work, they tell you don't go into this, don't be a social worker, don't be a therapist because you're not going to make money. And it's like, no, if you're going to own a business, you don't just own a business to own a business. You want to make a living. And so it took me a while to kind of figure out what my self-care plan was going to look like because I was all in, right? I was doing everything in my business. And, I found myself just on this like emotional roller coaster. Life was happening. A lot of things are going on during that time, but I was just trying to figure it out. Whereas today it looks very different where I take a personal day every week. I take a vacation every quarter. I do the things that I enjoy, like I coach girls flag football, I'm working on a book, I have a podcast, like things that outside of my business that my business bring me joy too, but that's still work. But like I'm able to focus more on myself and my self-care where early on I wasn't able to do that, which I feel like if I had a blueprint, I would have been able to implement those things, right? Like when I'm coaching business owners now, I teach them how to have a self-care plan at the beginning as opposed to waiting till they get to a certain point. Because one thing I've learned, there's going to always be things happening when you own a business. So we need these tools to help us navigate those times.
Absolutely, absolutely. And with, the title of this, creating your own way, sometimes we don't have a blueprint, right? But once we go through it, we are able to like better help others and to be able to really help ourselves. So I love to hear like your progression in the real, like it, when I started out, I was stressed out, but I finally was able to get into a place where I was able to take care of my well-being and implement it just as a part of my life, as a business owner.
Yeah, I think also for me, it was also a little different because I just kept telling myself I have to bet on me, right? I grew up in the system. I grew up in foster care. And so I knew like, okay, if not this, then what? Right? Like I've been
Hmm.
struggling my whole life. And like I'm like, I refuse to struggle as an adult. And so I think that was part of it too, just reminding myself of where I had come from and like what the end goal was.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if for you, it seems like if it wasn't for like your perseverance, right? Even the things that you went through in the past, like that perseverance, I'm sure in some way has been instrumental to you being able to push through some of the obstacles in
Oh yeah.
business as well.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. There are some days where I'm like, you got this. You've been through worse. You can handle this. But still acknowledging that it's tough, right? I think still
Hmm.
because as you know, I mean, less than what is it? 5% of small Black businesses make it the first 5 years. And so knowing those numbers and understanding like some of the barriers that come with owning a business and fighting through those barriers, was sort of like helped push me through some of those things.
And what do you think about like hustle culture and grind culture when starting a business?
I think
Um, you say it's overrated. Yes. Say more about that.
I think for Black women, and you've heard me talk about this, like it's this super shero syndrome, especially when you are a Black woman as a business owner, that we got to do it all and be it all for everyone but ourselves. And I had to go through this, right? Which is why I push, like, listen, if you have a plan, right, it's not going anywhere. Like your business is like your baby. It takes time to grow. So, and you want to make sure you feed it and take care of it and, make so it can grow into a full adult. But like, you don't want to stress yourself out in the process, because if you do, you won't be around to take care of your baby at the end of the day.
Hmm.
Like, and so I think just understanding, like, I think hustle culture looks different post COVID than it did pre COVID. Right now,
A hundred
everybody,
percent.
right? Like everybody wants to be a business owner. Everybody wants to, do this thing. But I think, and again, I think everybody should have some experience with entrepreneurship. I don't believe it's meant for everybody to be a full-time entrepreneur. That's just my personal opinion. I think one of the things I learned about being a business owner is that it will teach you how much discipline you have or you don't. Right. I
Hmm.
think oftentimes hustle culture helps us create these unrealistic expectations about owning a business and what it should look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the media, like social media, people like, started my own business and now I make $1 million and I retire early. But what about all those things that happened in between? So
Yep.
I think that there are like a sector of people that are interested in like starting a business, but they don't really know, like what you were talking about earlier, all the things that lead up to stability, to
Yeah.
success.
Ultimately comes down to you, like I said.
Hmm.
So my best friend and I have this conversation. So my best friend, she's the vice president of TMH, and we have a real estate investment company together, podcast, do a lot together on the business side. And she's an amazing marriage and family therapist, like amazing. And so probably about 2 years into her working for me, I wanted to help her start her own practice, because although I loved her working for me, I just know how dynamic she is. And she literally was like, no, I don't want your job. And I was like, we laughed about it. She was like, I love that I can be a leader. She's like, you carry a lot for this business. I just want to be able to collect my check and keep moving, do what I need to do. Like, and that's real, right? And that's okay. And so for some people, what people don't understand is like, it ultimately falls on you, right? I've had a lot of challenges. I'll be very transparent. I'm 8 years in and it's been great. Like, I would not change my journey, but there was a time where I wanted to give it all up, because so what I think, like, one of the things that stands out for me is one of the things that I didn't expect to play such a role in starting a business was your personal credit. My credit was not the best, and I was building my team. And as you know, insurance can pay late. People sometimes don't make their payments. And, especially in our field, you go from maybe seeing clients who are mandated and working for organization to having your own business and seeing folks who want to come to therapy, right? So that looks a little different. And so for me, it was a struggle every 2 weeks trying to make payroll. I've never missed a payroll early on, but it was very, very stressful because my personal credit wasn't what it needed to be for me to be granted a business on. I think that's some of the challenges that small Black owned businesses face, the access to capital, right? And so I didn't know that going in, how difficult that would be for me. But by the grace of God, I never missed the payroll, but it was not mentally, it was a lot. If I'm being honest, it was a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. The financial piece. And I think now the access to capital is a little bit better. Like it seems like since the pandemic
Yeah,
and
it's a
since,
little bit better.
it's
Definitely.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But 8 years ago when you started, people don't want to, just like with house loans, they don't want to give loans to Black business owners, even if we got a plan, even if we
Yes.
have a lot together.
And talking to some of my white counterparts who, I've built good business relationships with, who had similar situations, but who were granted that access. It's very frustrating in understanding what it was, but I was able to push through, and my village played a great role early on, and they still do, and just helping me out, when needed. And I'm so blessed to have had that support in terms of just like making payroll and making sure I had everything that I needed to run my business.
And what are some of your wins? Like, what are some of the things that you're proud of in terms of what you've accomplished thus far with your business, but also for you individually as a business owner?
Oh, where do I start? For me, I'm just proud of me that I never gave up on me. I always, like I said, I always want to be who I needed, the mom I needed, the sister I needed, the therapist I needed, the friend I needed. And so, first and foremost, I'm just proud that I'm still here. If I'm being honest, I know that's cliche, but like if you knew my story, you will understand why that's first for me. The fact that I'm still here, the fact that I've built a life for myself, and my village, and I have great support. But some of my wins in business, I think the first win is being able to provide opportunities for others, being able to bring on great clinicians and have a great staff, and like not only provide this opportunity but pay them well. Like
Mhm.
my therapists don't say like, "Oh, this job is stressful," or "We're not making enough." Like, no, I pay them. They have a great I think I make a great living at TMH, and so I think that brings me so much joy, and I'm proud of that because I built that. Like, I built my business in a way where I could compete with other organizations and take care of my people. I think another win is for me is trusting other people, and like I've built a great leadership team where I don't have to be so hands on. Some of the other things is I was in a WNBA competition a few years ago with product-based businesses, and as a service-based business, I took first place. Had never done a pitch competition, so I was really excited about that. I'm proud of that we're able to serve over 200 people a week at TMH,
Wow.
and that I've expanded the way I do therapy, and how we've decolonized therapy at TMH, and how we're shifting into a more communal approach. I'm so proud of that. So what I mean is, like, I definitely believe in traditional psychotherapy services, right? I believe in one-on-one work. I think it's needed, right? I don't always agree with some of the theory behind one-on-one work. So prime example, when I was in graduate school, I hated everything I was reading. Like, I hated, I mean, it was a challenge. So I hated everything that I was reading that was assigned to me. So I
Mhm.
did extra work. Like, I read the Psychology of a Black Child like 4 times, like all through graduate school, because I needed to understand how mental health and look from our perspective, right? And so that sort of helped me as I've been able to expand my work. And so when I talk about us doing a more a communal healing approach, we're doing sound therapy, we're doing Reiki, we're hosting community events, we have our team talk workshops. Like, we're just doing more group stuff, which I think is a part of the healing process too. It's still additional to the individual work, but just another component of the work that we've done and how we're shifting.
Yeah, yeah, and it's been amazing, like as a colleague, just to see TMH's growth, over the years and all the wins that you've had. I'm so proud of you and to know you. And I just can't wait to see, what the future holds for the work that you're doing and the impact that you're making in the lives of Black people in Chicago. If you could give like any tips for, say, we have some women on this podcast who are like, hey, I want to start my own business. What are some tips that you would give them based on what you've learned about yourself from your own experience as a business owner?
I would say, as a business owner, number one, self-care for you, right? Taking care of your mental health. So, number one, make sure you have a therapist, a business coach, like just a support system to help you kind of start the business. I would say also focusing on the impact and not the money, because the money will come. I am a living witness. The money will come if you focus on the impact. Also, mentors. I believe that mentors are the cheat code. It doesn't have to be anyone in your industry. Some of my best mentors are not in the mental health space. These are folks who just have laid the foundation and sort of shown you like what it means to own a business and take your business to another level. Something else I think is mastering everything in your business. Like, and what I mean is, don't just don't do direct service or be the person who is behind the register. Like, learn everything. And I had a valuable lesson in that. So when I started my business, I made sure I learned how to bill. I knew how to verify benefits, all the things that comes to owning a practice, because in 2020, my biller quit on me, like just one day stopped
Mhm.
doing the billing. And had I not known how to bill, it would have been very challenging. So I would say just mastering everything in your business and understanding how your business works, because as you grow, you're going to outsource things, but things happen. People leave, systems break down. And so I think that's important as well too. And also learning to say no, because we can't do everything. Learning to say no and understanding that no is a complete sentence.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. 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 And especially doing like community work, there's a
Yes,
lot of ask of
it
us,
is.
but at the same time, like say no is okay. And one of my friends, she said, I never regret a no, but I always regret a yes that I
Yes,
didn't really
I've been
want.
there. Yes, I listen. There have been times I'm like, why did I say yes to that? But I think it's this idea goes back to us as women wanting to please and like naturally being a social worker and therapist and just wanting to make sure we're doing everything. And it's like, no, some things we don't need to do and we can't do. So understanding that.
Hmm. Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Tytannie, for just sharing your experience as a business owner. I'm definitely inspired by you and also all the
It's
things that you
mutual.
shared. All the things that you shared about your experience. So, we have a hot topic, and it is focused on women in entrepreneurship. So, over the years, more and more women have entered business, probably more than ever before. And so, what are your thoughts about how women entering business can just like change the landscape of, services, businesses, products that are offered in our sector?
Black women are so amazing. Women are amazing, Black women are so amazing. I think it's great. Like I feel like I think about my late grandmother who passed in 2020, who only had a third grade education, but she was one of the hardest working women I know. And there's always this. I don't know if you hear it, but I hear this narrative about how like women today are not like women back in the day, right? We don't want to cook, we don't
Oh
want to
God.
clean, we're so focused on our careers. And you hear that narrative, right? But what people don't talk about is my grandmother didn't have that opportunity. She grew up in a town where Black women couldn't even get loans for a business, even if she wanted to start a business, right? She grew up in a town where she couldn't even work, where her kids had to be her focus, you know what I mean? And so I think understanding that the lands look different. And as Black women, we have to understand that, I think it's great that some of us have said, you know what, I don't need to be super mom. I don't need to be superwoman. It's okay if I have my business and raise my kids. And it may not look like me going cooking dinner every night, but my kids will eat every night, right? Maybe some things I may have to miss, but I can have it all, right? Whatever that looks like to me. So I think it's great. I think it empowers us, right? I think we're saying we are here. We've been here, but now we're creating our own opportunities.
Yes, I agree with everything you said. I think we just have the opportunity to do it.
Yep.
So why not run with it?
Why not run with it?
Um, just go ahead, try it. One of my mentors, she said, risk it all. Like if you want to
Yes.
go into business, like go ahead and
Listen,
pursue it.
my thing is always bet on you, because if not you, then who?
Hmm. Yes, yes. And I'm excited to just know so many Black women who are in business right now, whether
Listen,
part-time or full-time. Like, I'm like, this is amazing. And
I
all of them talk
know.
about the freedom, the different types of stress, but stress that you welcome, being able to provide for their families. Like, you have an asset now, like as a
Yes.
business, like it's amazing.
It's amazing. Like three of my closest female friends are business owners. Like we all were like, wait, we all own businesses, whether it's part-time or full-time. And I'm just like, this is amazing, right? Like, and I know for me, it's almost like I always wanted to be like a vessel for God and like, and show people the way because of what I've overcome in my life. And so to see so many people around me who are inspired by my journey, like I'm always reminded it wasn't about me. It was about the impact. It was about empowering others. So I will go through those pitfalls again because there's so many more of us, right? And so like I'm just proud of that. And I think it's great. And we can't be afraid to information share, right? We got to believe that there can be more than one of us. I think sometimes
Absolutely.
we get caught up in that. As you know, like if Kamisha reached out to me and say, hey, I'm a Medicaid provider. I'm gonna answer that question, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm so forthcoming because I haven't always had that, especially when I started. So I think that's important too, and understanding like there's more than enough. I promise you there's more than enough. So, and again, when you focus on the impact, everything else will fall into play.
Yes, yes, there is space for all of us, all of us. And sometimes there can just be this narrative that women like we're catty, competitive in, a not so nice way. But I've seen just like in Chicago, I don't know about other places, but I feel like there are plenty of women just like yourself who are supportive of one another, who don't mind taking the time to share, information if, it can help somebody else, and then all of us can rise and succeed together.
Exactly. But I appreciate you and what you've done here in Chicago. You definitely inspired me, so thank you. And I appreciate your platform. And I always, especially with TMH Man Cave, always sending me resources. I appreciate that. But just who you are as a woman in the space, definitely the feelings are mutual.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Tytannie. So we end with some quick tips. So any quick tips that you want to leave people about Black women in business? It can be anything, things we talked about, things we didn't talk about, that people can take away with them.
Set boundaries. And I know boundaries is a common thing, but and what I mean is, I don't just mean like saying no. I mean like there's a few things. So for example, understanding that when you're about to go into have a tough conversation, or you're about to encounter someone maybe you don't want to deal with, even if it's personal, check in with yourself and acknowledge your feelings, right? Understanding that just because you have free time, that doesn't mean everybody has the right to take it away from you, or you have to give away that time, right? I think boundaries are so important, right? Saying no to things you don't want to do and not giving a reason. I think that's, and I think that's important.
Thank you. Thank you. And so my quick tip is to really research resources that are available to really help you get started as a business owner. I know
Yes.
here in Chicago and other places around the city, there are so many business incubators, chambers
There
of
are.
commerce, groups. I mean, there are so many things that can help you if you're in that beginning process, or even if you're already in business and you're looking for that additional support.
Also becoming MBE certified or WBE certified. So having that minority business entity attached to your business and that women-owned business entity, I think it's a good thing to have too.
Yes, yep, because it can open up a lot of doors with
Yep,
contracts. I
it
mean, it
does.
helps a lot.
It does. Yep.
So, Tytannie, how can people stay connected to you? Where can they find you? How can they plug in with the work that you're doing?
So I'm on all social media as Tytannie Harris, and then TMH Behavioral Services, TMH Man Cave, which is my nonprofit, and then my podcast, Raw with a Purpose. So guys can follow me on all those different platforms.
Thank you so much. And we will tag
You.
all of Tytannie's information in the show notes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you all for listening. This was our last episode for the Quick Tip podcast for this season. And so I'm just so grateful that Dejada's not here today, but Dejada and I had the opportunity to speak to so many women and their different perspectives about Black women in the workplace and mental health. So we will see you all next season. And thank you so much for listening. Take care of all of you and be well.
Thank you for tuning in to the Quick Tip Podcast with Sista Afya. Stay connected with us by following us on Instagram and Facebook at Sista Afya. Join us for one of our upcoming groups, classes, or workshops, and sign up for therapy if you're an Illinois resident at www.sistaafya.com/services. And if you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We greatly appreciate you for being a part of our community, and we look forward to connecting with you soon. Take care.